Before we get the principle, let's review what we've learned so far. 2 weeks ago, we learned the first word, obey. Obedience is the foundation of a solid financial strategy. If you disobey God's instructions, you choose to manage your money without His help or blessing. One of the most familiar passages of Scripture in regard to money is Malachi chapter 3. We just looked at it a few minutes ago. But I want to give you a little different perspective, so let's read it in the Message. The Message says, "You have a long history of ignoring my commands. You haven't done a thing I've told you. Return to me so I can return to you," says God of angel armies. You ask, how do we return? Begin by being honest. Do honest people rob God? But you rob me day after day. You ask, how have we robbed you? The tithe and offering, that's how. And now you're under curse, the whole lot of you, because you're robbing me. Bring your full tithe to the temple treasury so there will be ample provisions in the temple. Test me in this. See if I don't open up heaven itself to you and pour out blessings beyond your wildest dreams. If you want to live according to God's system, following His plan, the starting place is the tithe. Give God the first 10% of your income. Obey. Last week, we looked at the second word, pay. Only spend what you make. In fact, go one step further. Crazy idea. Spend less than you make. Avoid high interest, future crippling credit card debt. Don't spend tomorrow's money paying for yesterday's impulse purchases. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." Cindy and I will celebrate our 39th wedding anniversary, June 13th this year. I know that seems impossible. I was 6 when I got married. I've been saving money for a gift. Now, I have absolutely no idea what it's going to be, and I don't need your suggestions. But I promise you, I will not put it on a credit card. When I give it to her, she will own it, not MasterCard or Visa or American Express, and I will pay for it once, not 3 or 4 times with interest. Not only are these principles important, the order is also important. You must start with obey, or your strategy will be absent God's blessing. Then pay comes next. No financial strategy works if you continue to accumulate debt. And then today's principle, delay, is probably the most difficult. Absolutely the biggest challenge for your children. They understand obey, putting God first. For a kid, that's just natural. They understand pay because they have math in school and the numbers make sense. Third word is super challenging, delay. The dictionary definition of delay is to put off to a later time, defer, to postpone. No one likes to delay, but if you apply this principle, it will radically alter your financial future. I guarantee it. I want to challenge you to delay 3 things. First, delay the purchase. Instead of taking out your Visa card, charging the purpose, delay until you have enough money to pay for it. Instead of just hitting send on your phone, wait. You've lived without it this long. Live without it until you can pay actual money. And often you'll find when you wait and save the money, you no longer want to spend it on that new outfit or that new shotgun or whatever. Way too many of you are still paying for things you no longer own that you bought to impress people you no longer like. Delay the purchase. Wait. When Tyler and Parker were young, we wanted a bigger TV to play video games. We didn't immediately buy it. Instead, we saved money and we studied. We delayed. Waiting can be boring. Studying made it fun. We went to stores. We looked at dozens of TVs. We read research. We saved money for more than a year. Now, it's true. We didn't have the big TV the first day we wanted it, but when we bought the TV, we took $100 bills to Best Buy and we paid cash. And here's the great thing. We bought a TV that cost more money than we had. And because we had cash, we could negotiate. We told the salesman, we want to pay less than that. He said, well, it doesn't work that way. I said, well, bring the manager out. Manager came out and I said, we really want that $1,100 TV. Me and my boys, we've had our eye on that TV, but we only have $800. But if we can buy it for these 8 $100 bills, we'll buy it right now. He took the deal. The boys loved the TV. I loved the fact it was paid for. It was worth the wait. Jesus talked about this kind of wisdom in Luke chapter 14. He said, don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Counting the cost isn't just about buildings. It's about life. It's about money. It's about looking ahead instead of acting on impulse. Delaying the purchase saves you from starting something you can't finish and paying for something long after you don't want it anymore. One of the biggest benefits to delay is you avoid impulse buying. You avoid buying things on credit, things you quickly figure out you don't really want or need. Wait. Delay. Think about it. I laugh when I see the commercials on TV that say, the next 15 callers will get an extra bonus. Or they say, call now, offer only good for the next 30 minutes. I want to help you understand something. First, they recorded that commercial months ago. Second, that commercial is airing in tons of different markets on many different stations. They have no idea when it airs. Whenever you call, the deal is the same. If you don't believe me, try it. They say 30 minutes, wait 40. Miss the deadline by 10 minutes, call the number and say, I'm so sorry. I know the deal isn't available anymore because it's been 40 minutes since I watched it. Trust me, the deal will still be there. They say call now because they know if you delay, you might not buy their product. They want to create a sense of urgency so you'll act without thinking or planning. The last thing marketers want you to do is think and delay. That's why they want you to sign up for a loyalty program or download their app so they can send emails and notifications that remind you how much you like their brand and entice you to immediately take advantage of limited time offers on things you weren't even thinking about buying. Turn off the app notifications. Unsubscribe from the emails. Don't fall for that trap. Delay. And while you're delaying, save your money. Jesus said, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. When you delay the purchase, you're not just saving money, you're pushing back a culture that says more stuff equals more life. Jesus said it plainly, life isn't measured by what you own. Real life isn't found in possessions. Now, there are a lot of different ways to teach your kids this principle. This is what Cindy and I did with Tyler and Parker. We didn't spend much money at birthdays and Christmas. Some years we didn't spend any because they had grandparents who spent more than enough. So we didn't do the big impress the other parents and win the my kid had a better birthday party than your kid contest. Each of our boys, when they turned 5 or 6, we told them, now, from now till you leave our home, you get one big birthday party. You can choose what age you want it. You get one big party with your friends. That's it. All the other years, the money we would have spent on parties and presents, instead of buying your kids pizza, we funded an investment account that they couldn't get until they graduated college or turned 25 years old. Along the way, if they put money in the investment account, we matched it. If you blessed Tyler with $50 for his birthday, most of the time he put it in his account and I had to match it. When they graduated college, their graduation present from us was their investment account. Every birthday present, every Christmas present, every party they didn't get for 21 years. And they learned there's a payoff when you delay. There were times they wanted the money or the party, but as they got older and closer to graduation, they were excited that they learned to delay. It's never too early to teach your children this principle, but it's difficult for them to learn it if you can't live it. Delay the purchase. Then number 2, delay the upgrade. Advertising tells you to upgrade your computer, your cell phone, your car, your house, your golf clubs, your iPad, your iPhone. There's always something newer and better that you just have to own. Upgrading is all about, I was happy with what I had until you told me what I didn't have. I loved my car until I saw that new car. Now my car is the same car I loved yesterday. The problem is now I've seen something different. My cell phone was just fine, but look at the camera on the new one. 1,000 more megapixels. I got to get it. Here's what makes this a powerful principle. On major purchases, like a house or a car, while you delay the upgrade, bank the difference. Bank the difference between what you're paying now and what you'd pay for the new one. Cindy and I, our first house cost $83,900. We lived there for 15 years. We could have upgraded sooner. We could afford it, but we delayed. Well, we did. We figured out what the payment would be on the new house we wanted, and for 5 years, we banked the difference between what the upgrade could cost and what our first house cost. There were times we wanted to quit delaying and go for it, but when we looked at what we could do if we'd keep delaying, what kind of down payment we could make on the eventual upgrade, that kept us going. I didn't own my first new car until I was 35 years old. For 19 years, I drove used cars, hand-me-downs, and clunkers. Now, I loved looking at new cars. I went to the dealers. I test drove amazing cars. I'd drive around like I owned it, stop at Sonic. I loved those cars, but I liked paying for my Rodmobiles. I started with a 1968 Pontiac Catalina. Black interior, no air conditioning, in Texas. I drove that car 4 years. When I was done with it, I sold it for a $100 bill and felt guilty. And as he's driving away, I realized I left my class ring in the ashtray. I ran after him because my ring was worth more than the car he was driving out of the driveway. After that, I drove a succession of used cars. My favorite was a 1988 Honda Civic that I drove until the year 2000. Some of you still remember that ride. I skipped the entire decade of the 90s. I never impressed anyone with my cars, but I also didn't live in bondage to them. Hailstorms didn't bother me. When a hailstorm was coming, everybody else on staff, they'd pull their cars under the awnings. I'd pull mine out in the middle of the parking lot, aiming it at the direction of the incoming storm, knowing there's no way the storm would hit it. Door dings weren't a bother. True story. This is not my notes. True story. I was at the golf course one time, and I left. It was hot, so I left the Civic in the parking lot, windows rolled down, keys in the ignition. 4 hours later, when I got back to my car, it was still there, but someone had stolen my $30 gas money out of the armrest. They took my $30 and left my car. That kind of puts it in perspective. But all the while you were making fun of my Civic, I was saving the difference. Now, it's true, I didn't look cool driving that Civic for 12 years. But if you do that, you know what you do for the other 9 years after you paid for it? Well, you're delaying the upgrade, make a new car payment to yourself. Not even a big one. Pay yourself $300 a month. At the end of 9 years, driving that old paid-for car, do you know how much money that equals? $32,400. That's without the interest growth. I paid cash for Tyler's first car with the money I saved by not upgrading my car. Every once in a while, we'll say, well, I don't think a pastor should have such a nice house. Where were you when we lived in that first one for 15 years? Well, I don't think a pastor should drive a nice vehicle. Come on, you don't remember the Civic? I drove that more than a decade, saving money instead of making payments. You're mistaken if you look at what I have and don't consider how I delayed. The key to delay is bank the difference as you delay. It's not just waiting to be waiting, although that would be good. It's a strategic decision to make your financial future secure. And by now you're starting to figure it out. While I was living in the old house, driving the old car, and talking on the old phone, I was saving the difference in building my financial future. If you exercise discipline and do that, by the time you're my age, you can buy what you want. Now, this third thing is the biggest key of all. If you've tuned me out, tune back in. Students, if you'll pay attention to this, one day you will have more money than you ever thought possible. I'm about to teach you the secret. I guarantee if you'll just do this one thing, when you retire, you'll be a millionaire. I promise. You just do this one thing. You start now. You'll have more than $1 million when you're retired. So we already talked about delay the purchase and the upgrade. This one's the magic. Delay the raise. Starting with your next raise, delay every raise. When you get a raise, delay it 1 year. Take the money. I mean, don't tell them to keep it. Take the money, but instead of changing your budget or your lifestyle, save the raise and then do that every year. Jesus taught the same principle in the theme verse for this series. Jesus said, if you're faithful in little things, you'll be faithful in large ones. But if you're dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. If you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? Before God trusts you with more, he watches what you do with what you have. Delaying the raise is being faithful in the little, and when you're faithful in the little, God positions you for more. Now, let me just take a couple minutes and show you what I mean. This principle works regardless of the numbers. I'll create a situation based on someone I've worked with, okay? You're an entry-level position. You're making $30,000 a year. Some of you students are like, how could you ever spend that much money? Your groceries cost that much money. So it's tight, but you're getting by. The next year, you get a raise to $35,000. But instead of taking the raise, you delay it. You pay your tithe on it, so you're paying another $500 in tithe, and then you're saving, for 1 year, you're saving $4,500. You haven't changed your lifestyle. You're just delaying 1 year. At the end of the year, you've got $4,500 in the bank. The next year, you get a $3,000 raise. Now you're making $38,000. Pretty awesome. You're going to pay the tithe. That's another $300. This year, you're going to save $2,700. But you're going to give yourself last year's raise. So now you're living on $35,000, even though you're making $38,000. Pay the tithe out of the raise, bank the difference. Now, after 2 years, you have $7,200 in the bank. Okay? And you haven't done without anything. All you did was delay your raise 1 year. Then the next year, like my friend did, you get a promotion, big money. Now you're making $50,000 a year. You just got a $12,000 raise. But for 1 year, you live off $38,000, last year's income. You pay the additional tithe out of it, $1,200, and this year you're banking $10,800. You haven't gone without anything, you've just delayed. The next year, you give yourself the raise of the $50,000. Delay your raise by 1 year. For the rest of your life, always live off last year's salary. Delay every raise. Now, those numbers might not seem big to you, but it also works at smaller amounts. If you're making $20,000, you get a raise of $22,000, pay the tithe, bank the rest. At the end of the year, you'll have $1,800 in the bank. So you can see this person I worked with, at the end of that, they had 10-8, 14-8, 15-3, 16-3. They had a lot of money. They had like $18,000, something like that. It was real close to that. They're somewhere in that range. What's really great is it's only difficult 1 year. After that, every year you get a raise. You're just taking last year's raise. You're 1 year behind the raises. If you get reviewed every 6 months, same principle. Always live financially 1 raise behind. And here's where it's really amazing for young couples. You're working, your spouse is in school. When he graduates, delay his salary for 1 year. You've been living off $35,000. It's tight, you're making it for just 1 year. Pay the tithe on his salary, bank the raise. Delay the raise 1 year. The next year, add his salary to your income and enjoy it and adjust. you'll enjoy the raise even more knowing you have money in savings. And so you listen to that explanation, which seems very simple. You say, Rod, that's simple, but that's unrealistic. Who would do that? Well, I've been doing that for 40 years. At first, it didn't seem like much. First raise was 50 cents an hour, $20 a week, $1,000 that year. But I can tell you, after 40 years of doing it, it's incredibly freeing. This isn't just a theory. This is how I live. I'm always 1 year behind my income, but a lifetime ahead with my savings. Instead of taking your raise, delay it by 1 year. This is actually a biblical principle. Proverbs 13:11, he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. Now, at this stage of life, we approach it a little different. We haven't taken a raise in a few years, but the last few we did. When we took them, we just gave our whole raise back to God. And we're able to give more of our income to the kingdom. It's just a lot of fun. Now, before we go, let me show you it's really amazing. If you invest the raise, you delay and invest the money for your delayed purchases and upgrades, you get a fairly conservative market return. We're going to say 8%, S&P 500, 8% return. In 9 years, your money doubles. In 18 years, it's worth 4 times what you put in. If you're really disciplined, in 36 years, it's worth 16 times what you invested. So see, that's where Cindy and I now. We've been doing this long enough that our original save raise from our 20s is now worth more than 16 times what it was when we started. So I had dinner with Seth Harrison a few weeks ago. Last Wednesday night, actually. Seth is 15, and he likes honey buns for snacks. Okay? That's his thing. He buys honey buns, and after school, he'll get a honey bun. He spends $1.50 on a honey bun. Okay? So that doesn't seem like much. He spent $1.50 on a honey bun. I said, Seth, can we talk about that honey bun? He looked at me like I was an idiot, because he's 15. And he said, sure, let's talk about the honey bun. I said, if you put that $1.50 in a retirement account and invest it in the S&P 500, that money would double every 9 years. He just looked at me. I said, well, let me help you. That means 9 years from now, that $1.50 honey buns, it's worth $3. When you're 24 years old, you'll have $3. When you're 33, you'll have $6. But you're going to keep going. You're going to let it ride. When you're 42, you're going to have $12. You're going to stick with it. When you're 51 years old, $24. But you're not quitting. When you're 60, $48. And when you reach retirement age, that $1.50 honey bun is worth $96. I said, now, Seth, would you pay $96 for a honey bun? He said, no way. I said, you're doing it every day. And you say, well, that's nothing. But what if Seth exercised incredible self-discipline, and let's say he gave up honey buns for just a month? 25 honey buns, $37.50. By the time Seth is 69, that 1 month without honey buns would be worth $2,400. If Seth could kick his honey bun habit for 1 year, it would equal $28,000 at retirement. If you do basic math, you quickly realize this is the key. This is the path to financial security and the ability to give significantly to the kingdom. Now, let's say Seth really buys into this delaying, and he caught it. And he saves what he makes in the summer. He delays every raise. By 24 years old, he has $10,000 saved. By the time Seth is retirement age, that $10,000 would be worth $320,000 without putting anything else in. And I told Seth and his sister Becca, if you follow my plan, I guarantee you'll be a multimillionaire by the time you retire. So here's my question. What could you delay? What do you really want but you could wait half. The younger you are, the more powerful it is because you got a longer time to double. But this works at any age. So some of you are like, well, that doesn't work for me because I'm already 45 years old. My honey bun's only worth $6. $6 more than you have now, right? Instead of putting that $1.50 in your gut. Delay the raise. Delay. That was a very Southern moment right there. Delay the raise, delay the purchase, delay the upgrade. Wait. Sacrifice now and get it later. To which you say, I don't want to wait. I want it now. Proverbs 25:28 talks about you. Like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control. Congratulations, you made the Bible. It takes self-control to wait. Without self-control, you have no defense. You're subject to the whim of the moment, going with your emotion, what you must have, what you can't wait. You say, but Pastor Rod, it's no fun to wait. I understand, but how much fun is it paying off something you don't even own anymore? Learn to wait. When you choose to delay, you're not just being smart with money, you're living out faith. Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All those things you worry about will be given to you as well. That's the heart of it. Delay because you trust that God's timing is better than your impulse. Wait because you believe God will provide what you need when you need it. Every time you delay the purchase, every time you delay the upgrade, every time you delay the raise, you're saying, Lord, I trust you more than I trust my wants. When you do that, you position yourself for blessing that lasts. Not just financial blessing, but the peace and freedom that comes from putting God first. Now, just before we go, do you know what I realized? Once again, this principle is not only money. Why do people mess up their lives sexually? Because they're not willing to wait until marriage. God says, wait, I know you want it now. But if you'll only wait, it'll be so much better. You'll avoid so much pain. You'll avoid so much heartache. Why do people make horrible decisions about their life and career? Because they're not willing to wait on God's timing. They're in too big of a hurry. How much better would your life be if you learned the principle of delayed gratifications? Proverbs 21:5 in the Message says, careful planning puts you ahead in the long run. Hurry and scurry puts you further behind. Trust God's plan and also trust God's timing.